Hi, I'm Randall from Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab, providing tips on language learning, culture, and human development. And I think one of the most important roles as an educator is giving students a voice, sharing their cultures, their insights, their hopes and dreams for the future. And I think such opportunities allows us to expand our exchange with others, our knowledge and our humanity, and it allows us to enrich our connections with others from around the world. And fortunately, I think the world is full of talented and innovative teachers who are seizing the opportunities to bring their students together, like on today's episode, which provides them, their students, that opportunity to connect with others. In this episode, I will be interviewing one such teacher, Pinar Taban from Turkey, and her students, who are going to be talking about their country and land and people, also about the Turkish cuisine. Then we're going to address some of the challenges of learning English during the pandemic and overseas. This is where I hope to bring in your voices so that you can share your experiences in learning English. And they're also going to be talking about some of their successes in learning language. And they're going to talk about the ideal teacher. What is their image of the ideal language teacher? And they're going to conclude by talking about their hopes and dreams for the future. So we're really excited about this episode. We have many people that are joining from Peru. We also, Jesus is joining us from Colombia. Shamim, thank you very much, Shamim, for joining. We have others from Turkey, and so forth. So it's great to see so many voices from San Diego as well. So let's just get right into the broadcast, and I want to bring on our guests to the episode. Welcome, everyone. Well, good morning. And so let's just get right into this. Let's go ahead and start with some basic introductions. Like any of my broadcasts, we want to encourage you and your voice to join in as well. So let's go ahead, and the students are going to briefly introduce themselves, talking about where they're from, their hobbies, and their future plans. So R2, if you could lead us off.
Gladly. Hello, I'm R2. I'm a high school student. I like reading books, writing stories, watching movies, and playing video games.
Okay, and any particular type of video games you enjoy?
Strategy video games, yes.
Okay, great. And Urkur, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Öykü. I am a 10th grade foreign student at Bilim Vadisi Schools. I live in Istanbul. I like listening to music and painting.
Okay, and any particular type of music that you like? Any favorite artist?
I listen mostly pop music.
Okay, great. And Yusuf.
Hi, I'm Yusuf. I study at Bilim Vadisi High School. I love watching movies and TV shows.
Okay, any particular TV show that you enjoy?
Yeah, I'm watching Better Call Saul.
Okay, great. And then we're going to bring in Arda, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Arda. I'm 16 years old. I live in Istanbul. I like playing video games and reading books.
Well, great. And we want to thank you. And just for our students' information, we have people that are joining us from Bolivia. Olivia from Bolivia. Thank you very much. Pierre from the Dominican Republic. Welcome. Fernanda from Brazil. Someone here from, who is this? Is this someone that any of you know?
My mother.
Your mother. Well, welcome. Welcome to the broadcast. It's great to see Mina from Turkey and Annie. The ideal teacher is one who corrects you, but encourages you to become better. We're going to listen to some of these ideas. So throughout the broadcast, feel free to share your thoughts and opinions, and we like to welcome you all. And if by chance you're a teacher and you would like to organize something like this with your students from Brazil, from Dominican Republic, please let me know. We have someone also from Vietnam and from Costa Rica. And I don't know if many of you realize, the students that are joining, of so many voices that would be watching you today. I always tell people, I get a little nervous when I do this. So if you're nervous, we're in the same boat. Let's go ahead now. And if Pinar, if you could just tell us about your school so that people who are watching the broadcast understand the nature of your particular program?
Okay. Well, my name is Pinar, and I have been teaching English for nearly 20 years now. And right now I work at Bilim Vadisi Schools, where I teach English and I run the foreign languages department. Bilim Vadisi Schools, actually it's a school located by the seaside in Beylikdüzü, Istanbul. And we have students from grade 5 to grade 12, which is the middle school and high school. And we have a language program where we try to address the needs of the 21st century. And we do our best for our students.
Great, and thank you very much. And it's great to be able to share about your school. Those that are watching the broadcast today, feel free to let us know. If you're a teacher, what kind of program do you work in? If you're a student, what kind of school do you attend as well? Oh, there's a question. I like all of your English videos. How can I and my son join your English class? Now, I'm not sure if you're talking about me or they're talking about you, Pinar, but it's great that people are so interested in joining and finding out. We have other people that are giving their wishes. I'm not sure who these are, perhaps family and friends. But again, it's great to see all of you. We have someone also from Bangladesh. Well, let's get right into this. We're first going to do a couple of things. Number one, we're going to have the students talk about the country, land, and people, specifically about the geography, about the population, and so forth. And we're going to be talking about food as well. Then we're going to get into the challenges of learning English in Turkey. But we want to hear from you. What are some of the challenges that you're facing in the United Arab Emirates, in Bolivia, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Myanmar, wherever you might be? We want to hear from you. Then what we're going to talk about is successful strategies to learning English, especially before and during the pandemic. I know these students have just wrapped up their school year. And then we're going to talk about the qualities of the ideal language teacher. Are these universal? In other words, the qualities of an ideal language teacher in Turkey and in Brazil, in Venezuela, are they the same? And finally, we're going to wrap up things with all of the students about their hopes and dreams for the future. So throughout the broadcast, if you have any comments about any of these topics, about the challenges to learning English in your country, of successful learning strategies, we want to hear from you. So let's go ahead and begin. Let's talk about the country. And Okur, tell us about Turkey.
Turkey is surrounded by seas on three sides. It's a bridge between Asia and Europe. Our country shares a border with Bulgaria, Greece, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Georgia. Our population is 83 million. 99% of our country is Muslim. Capital city is Ankara. There are 81 cities in Turkey. The most crowded city is Istanbul. There are many UNESCO projects placed in our country. For example, Cappadocia, Pamukkale, Göbekli Turkey has got 4 seasons. Summers are hot and winters are rainy and cold. With its natural beauty and historical place, Turkey is a lovely country to visit.
And I could see from these pictures some of the beauty of the country. Now, Okur, I can't even pronounce these names, let alone just imagine, but it looks so beautiful. And I know that there's probably a great amount of diversity in the country as well. And it's great to get a feel. Whoops. Let me get back to where we all are. It's great to get a feel for some of the land and people and so forth. And we're going to get, someone is mentioning about the ideal teacher. We're going to talk about that a little later. Again, we have other people that are saying hello from Peru as well. So let's go ahead now that, and thank you, Ukur, for introducing the country. What we want to do now is talk about some of the cuisine and food And so for those that are watching today, feel free to share your foods from your country. So R2, if you could tell us about some of the foods, because already I'm getting hungry.
Gladly. First of all, I think there's a false advertisement about Turkish cuisine. We only advertise kebab and baklava, but the reality is Turkish cuisine is very various cuisine. In the east part of the country, generally you will see meaty dishes. We have got a lot of different meatballs, by the way. In the west side, generally you will see vegetable dishes. If you are vegetarian, there are a lot of delicious different vegetable dishes. And there's a food called sarma, and people are making sarma with a lot of different types of leaves.
Now that picture right there where it looks like a soup or pudding, how do you
Actually,
pronounce that?
it's a sütlaç. It's like pudding. Actually, it's a dessert.
Okay.
It's a milky one.
And then you have some other dishes here as well. Those look delicious.
Yes.
You mentioned about meat. And so when
Yes.
you said different types of meat, what are some of the common meats that people might eat?
Generally, in the east side, people are eating lamb meat. In the north side, people are eating fish meat.
Okay. And that looks, I mean, those look so delicious. And again, at some point, if I ever go to Turkey, which I certainly would hope so, that perhaps I can drop by your house, each one of you, I will visit your houses and have like a 5-course meal. That looks so delicious. And we have someone mentioning kebab, as you just mentioned. Someone says, Edda says, I announced to all my students to watch the episode. I said maybe one day they could attend such an episode. Not attend, but participate. That would be great. And Jesus says, I'm an English language teacher in Colombia. This is a great country. People here are very friendly. Well, feel free, Jesus, to join us for a broadcast. And also, kebab is also popular in Vietnam now. Feel free to share us the type of meats that you have. Also, here's Mina. I'm at the same group. Pinar, maybe this is one of your students or fellow students. We have Nezreen. Thank you for joining from the United States. Wow, we have a lot of people. I'm sorry? All right. And we have other peoples that are joining as well. And then greetings from Nayeli from Mexico. Well, great. As you can see, we've talked about Urku. You talked about the country, a little bit about the population. Also was followed up by R2, talking about some of the cuisine. Let's now actually get into the next part of the broadcast, which is talking about some of the challenges of learning English in Turkey. And we want to hear from you out there. What are some of the challenges that you face in your country, whether it's a large city, a rural area, online, and so forth? So let's go ahead and talk about this topic.
One of the main problem is the state schools. They don't focus on English. They more focus on science, math, or anything else. Also, they lack English supplies too. That makes a huge difference between the private schools and state schools. Because like private schools can have smart boards, maybe high quality computers, and even Wi-Fi. But the state schools can't provide this equipment to their students. So this is a very big problem because most of the families in Turkey send their children to state schools.
And I think that's a really important part. Are there parts of Turkey where there's very limited or no internet connection?
The east is very bad. I mean, even the west, which Istanbul is not very good, but the east is terrible.
And I think that's an important point because sometimes when we talk about online learning, especially during the pandemic, often teachers are thinking, well, just get online. But we realize I'm interested in hearing in your particular country, whether it's Colombia, Dominican Republic, Brazil, or wherever, to what degree do students have reliable internet connections? And that was important. And Arda, you talked about, smart boards or anything like that. And that could be a huge challenge, I think, to students around the world. And just sometimes there are students, well, they don't have enough desks. And so there are a lot of different challenges with that. So thank you. What else can we speak about in talking about challenges of learning English in Turkey or in other countries?
I think in Turkey, since a lot of people don't know English, because our main language isn't English, you are going to have a hard time speaking face to face, practicing face to face, and that makes it hard to catch up new words and learn how it's spoken officially. And this is quite a fun fact, but I'm gonna tell it. The grammar of English and Turkish is literally the reverse. And you would think in German, in English, maybe there's like a one or two differences, but in Turkish, it's literally reverse. So it can get messy and mess your speaking really badly. On top of that, as Arda said, the schools already don't have enough supplies. So with COVID in, with us counting COVID in, I mean, they don't even have the internet in the first place to begin with to sit in front of a computer and join a class. Even if they did, it is kind of boring, to be honest. It's not really enjoyable as a face-to-face lesson.
And let me ask you, you mentioned, first of all, about limited opportunities of speaking. I'm assuming, Yusuf, I'm sorry, when you walk out of your school, you're not encountering 50 native speakers waiting to speak with you outside of your school. And that can be a real challenge. And I know, Ukuch, you mentioned about music. Maybe for some people, listening to music can be one way of doing that. Let's talk. There's a couple of comments that are coming in. Please let us know what country. I can't remember the country you're from, but you said there are 40 or 50 students in each class in public secondary schools. It's really challenging. How many students are in your classes?
We have 15 and 16, like it changes, but this comment is very correct, because like there's even more in some public schools. It's a very big problem.
Yeah. And when you look at it, I mean, for some teachers and students, I would love to have 15 students, but I've talked to teachers that have 50, 60, 80, 120 students in the class. So certainly those can be really challenging, as you mentioned. Also, there's some, Mina says, don't forget Manti. Maybe that's someone that you know. Lots of pressure. Maybe lots of pressure with students and teachers. That can be really important. In Vietnam, 50 and 60 students in a class, that can be quite challenging. So thank you very much for sharing those. Again, we have comments coming in from Venezuela and other places as well. So you're talking about the challenges. Those are really hard, and I'm glad that you're bringing those up. Any other challenges that you can think of, Artu or Okur? No problem. We're going to lead now into the next part about this. And let's talk about successful strategies to learning English. So you mentioned about the difference between public schools, private schools, limited resources. And Pinar, I'm sure that I think there are many teachers, when they started teaching online, it was like, whoa, the resource I lack most is experience. I don't have any experience doing this. So let's talk about successful strategies to learning English. And again, we invite the audience to share your ideas as well. Who can start us off?
I can start.
Okay, thank you, Arda.
So the easiest way and the most successful way is, in my opinion, watching TV shows, movies, or playing video games. It's very important because you can hear it very well and you can see it with subtitles if you want. Also, if you don't have these like television or something, you can create a game of your own. Like, it's your imaginary. You can do everything what you want.
Okay, and let me ask you, in your classes, you mentioned about music and movies. Probably students, if teachers were to use movies and music in their classes occasionally, I think that could be useful as well. All right. What else besides music and movies and so forth? What are some other successful strategies? And those of you that are out there, teachers and students, what is working for you, especially during this new pandemic era? Who else? I think Yusuf, you had something else on this particular topic.
Yeah, I agree with Arda, but I also think that reading books is a good improvement too, because when you're learning a new language, you're obviously going to misspell a lot of words, and by reading books, you can clearly see that how it's supposed to be written, and the fact that you are going to read it over and over again, the same word, you kind of get the idea, you kind of get it in your brain how it's written. And as I said, there's not many people to talk to in Turkey, so I think one of the best ways is to speak online. I mean, whether it be a gaming group or a TV show group, it doesn't matter. You can just speak and it will improve. And the key here is just don't get scared and think about if they are going to make fun of me or not. I mean, just speak and it will be okay. It will be fine.
Now you're saying just speak up, you'll be
Yeah.
fine. And you mentioned a couple of points. Number one, finding groups online. Okay. And I think being afraid and nervous is a common feeling. For example, if Okur was going to be my Turkish teacher. Now, Okur, I'm level 0 in Turkish. I would be afraid, but probably Okur would be a nice teacher. She would help me along. But you're right, Yusuf, trying to feel at ease in such online communities could be very useful. Let's see here. I'm just seeing what, here is a teacher from Vietnam. She says, when teaching online, I have to be more creative. I try to design online quizzes like games. And I'm sure as students, you want a teacher that's going to be creative, who's going to use different techniques. And we're going to talk about this in a minute. Annie says, I have been studying English and I've noticed that most of the teachers do not correct us. Neither our grammar while we're speaking nor pronunciation, unfortunately, does not help us improve. So it's kind of that balance of, having a teacher correct us, support us as well, I think is important. And you also mentioned, Yusuf, about reading books. Imagine your teacher says to you, here is the new grammar book, 5,000 pages on the history of grammar over the last 20,000 years. Is that the kind of book you're talking about, Yusuf?
No, I mean, read whatever you like, but just in English. That's just a language difference.
Yeah, and it could be. I know many of you have talked about your different interests. I think R2, you mentioned about video games, maybe reading about your favorite video game designer, or Urkur, you mentioned about pop music, maybe reading about a popular band or something like that. Not the history of grammar over the last 20,000 years. Shamin says, this is important. She says, students face problems in pronunciation in Iraq because of the number of students in the class. And this is a challenge for the teacher. There is a problem of internet coverage. And I know that in some countries, we're talking about many, many students that are being part of a class. So thank you very much for sharing those comments. Let's move on. So any of you who are watching a student, I really enjoyed the comments from students as well, having a teacher that corrects you. Let's now lead into the next part of the broadcast, which is talking about the qualities of the ideal language teacher. And we want to hear from you, our guests, about the qualities of the ideal teacher. And for you students that are out there in Brazil or Vietnam or wherever you are, what are the qualities you see in the ideal teacher? And let's see if there's some universal qualities from culture to culture. Let's go ahead and talk about this. Who's going to lead us off?
I can start again.
Yes, go ahead, Arda.
Okay, so in my opinion, a good teacher needs to communicate. By me saying communicate, I mean um, trying to talk like the student generation. If the teacher talks, speaks, or like tries to communicate with each generation, the students might lose interest to teacher, the English lesson, or the any language lessons. So it's very important to communicate like the students in the class, so they won't the students don't get bored or something like that.
And when you say communicate, I think you mentioned about communicating regarding their own interests. For example, if I am studying English and Urkur is my English teacher, and I say, I like pop music, and Urkur says, as my teacher, I have no idea what pop music is all about. That does not create connection. So number one is sharing interest, I think is really important. So communication with students. Something else.
Can I?
Absolutely, Yusuf.
The communication is great and all, but I think teachers should be engaging too, because while counting COVID in, we are just sitting in front of a monitor, and if teacher doesn't engage me like every 15 minutes, not 15 minutes, every 15 seconds, and
Right.
engage everyone in the lesson, I mean, I'm just going to open another tab, and it's just to be honest, when you're not getting engaged, the lesson gets boring quickly. And even without the COVID, if you're in a classroom and nobody engages with you, you're just going to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to draw something in my notebook, I guess. So I think engaging is the key.
And I think that is really important. Sometimes I hear teachers say, my students always turn off their camera, right? And I often say, well, if you want to create an engaging environment, give them a reason to turn on their camera. I mean, if we're going back to that 5,000, page dictionary of the history of English, that's not going to give students an interest or reason to join the class at all. So I think that's a really important part. Creating an engaging environment, I think, is really, really key. All right. The other thing is comment, Binyo, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Names are important. But you said from Vietnam, she says, patience, creativity. Those are the two most important to be an ideal teacher, in my opinion. And when you say patience, I think that's important. And going back to Arda, you were talking about communication. I want a teacher who understands not only my mind, but my heart when I'm going through some difficult experiences. Thank you very much for sharing that. Another one, Edda says, being positive towards students in process of learning are key, helping students through difficult situations and being positive to them. Shamin says, an ideal teacher must be patient. Do you hear that word, patient? How many of you agree that patient is important? R2 and
I definitely
Uku.
agree.
Okay. Patient. I think it's really important. Okay. I put two hands up. I could put my feet up if I could. And Shamin says, an ideal teacher must be patient, tries to understand the needs of his or her students to start from there. Teachers should be creative and introduce the lesson in a very interesting way. Maybe Yusuf and R2 and Urkur and Arda can share an example of how your teacher was creative. Think about that for a minute. An example of someone who is really engaging. We have something that says, agree, thank you. I totally concur. I feel American culture gives that kind of engagement to invite students to be part of the class. Someone says agree, and again, another agree. Can you any of you think of an example where one of your teachers, it doesn't have to be an English teacher, just a teacher was really engaging with their students? Yusuf or Arda or Kur or Artu? Yes, Yusuf.
I I remember like it was not the most creative thing, but she just wouldn't let go of us. When we were just kind of sleeping, kind of drawing something, she just would not let go. I mean, it's like, Yusuf, are you sleeping? Yusuf, come on in the lesson. I mean, that is the key. You getting engaged like that, you won't ever like sleep in the next 5 minutes or so.
Okay. So calling you by name, so
Yeah, I
reaching
guess.
out, even through Zoom, like reaching out and connecting with your students, I think is so important. R2, do you have any thoughts on this as well?
I don't know. I don't have a much specific thought, but if I can easily communicate with the teacher, things can be much more easier, I guess.
Okay, great comment. And another comment is coming in. An ideal teacher is one who believes in his students' potential. He is one who encourages them. And I think just being positive, but also remembering each one of us is struggling, especially during the pandemic, where I know I've met many teachers who are taking care of their family, but also teaching, or like many of you, Randall, I'm at home taking care of family and being a student at the same time. And that can be very challenging as well. And so thank you very much for those comments. The next part, what we like to do, and again, feel free to share any of your comments on ideal teachers. I've heard patience, I've heard engaging, I've heard communication. I think those are kind of universal. But let's now, as we come toward the end of our broadcast, let's talk about some of the hopes and dreams that you have for the future. And Pinar, I'm going to bring you in here as well. What are some of your hopes and dreams? Thinking back on what you mentioned about your future jobs might be, what do you hope for yourself, for your community, for your country, and for the world? Let's go ahead. Yusuf, could you start us off?
Yeah. As career, I can't say I have something specific in mind, but as life, I have two things in mind. I want to get good education and I want to be healthy, because COVID teach us that health is very fragile and you can just pass away like it's nothing. So I want to be healthy, I think.
Great points. I think many people would hope and dream for a healthier world, both emotionally, mentally, and physically. So thank you, Yusuf, for sharing that idea of health for the world. Ukur, what are some of your thoughts about the future?
In the future, I would like to be an architect because I like drawing and designing. I'd like to go to United States to study architecture.
All right. And that's wonderful. I think many people in the world and the United States would open their doors, their companies, to someone like you who would like to share her talents with so many people. Thank you very much. R2.
First of all, I would like to be a happy person in the future, and I would like to be immortal, and I would like to do something remarkable. I think words are powerful, and I would like to write stories. I would like to write books. When I die, I don't want to go from world for good. I would like to leave some marks. I would like to win the hearts of the people with my work and become immortal.
Okay. And you mentioned about leaving your mark maybe
Yes.
on the hearts of other people. And I think we can do that in so many ways. And I think some of you talked about the idea of the quality of the ideal teacher. All of us are going to be a teacher in some way, either teacher as an architect, or a teacher in a classroom, or as a father or parent. Just being kind and patient can leave that mark. So thank you, R2. Arda.
As a career, I want to be a diplomat in Turkey. But if we talk about the whole world, I would like to help, even if one bit, I want to help this world. Maybe plant a tree or do something, I don't know. But I want to help this world to change for peace, for a more cleaner future, for students, for everyone else.
All right. And again, I think I keep hearing, Pinar, from your students, changing the world. one small act of kindness at a time. And I think that's really Yusuf, you shared, did you not?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Pinar, we've heard from everyone. Pinar, any of your last thoughts for the future, for your students, for the world?
Okay. My first wish is to see my students fulfill all their dreams and reach their goals for the future. And personally, I'd like to keep learning and teaching till the end of my life. This is my dream for the future.
Okay. And it's interesting that as looking at some of the other comments that are coming in that are connected, we already saw this about believing in someone else's potential, I think is important. Olivia says a good teacher never criticizes his or her students. They try to keep students' motivation up and to improve in what they're doing. Mina says an idea teacher should help students gain confidence in their ideas. I think that's really so important. An ideal teacher should be like Pinar. All right. That's great to hear from someone out there. Another one says some students should be taken out of their shell by pushing them to be more communicative, not cracking open the shell, but slowly. I think, Mina, you're saying slowly help them blossom as a rose. I think that's great. Another says, thank you very much for your contribution. Your website has helped me a lot in providing students with listening materials. That's what I do. I create listening materials as well. And that's where we want to always try to create an authentic voice. I think having students like Pinar and your students today is that real authentic voice. And we certainly want to do whatever we can to build students up. I want to thank, this has been just so wonderful, Artu and Ukur and Yusuf and Arda and Pinar, for your willingness to share your voices, for your willingness to come on. And you mentioned, I think, Yusuf, that I can't walk outside of my school and meet 20 native speakers. But today, you've just opened up your voice to thousands, millions, potentially billions of people who are watching today. So I want to thank all of you for joining the broadcast. I want to also, as we wrap up this broadcast, I want to thank all of you for joining, for being a part of this conversation, for sharing some of the challenges and successes that you experience as a language teacher and as a language learner. Again, thank you very much for joining us. We wish you a wonderful day and an even better tomorrow. Until the next time. Bye-bye.